Hi guys, I'm making one of my famous videos, but I'm not famous, so the videos aren't famous, but you know what I mean. So basically today on Radio 2, I heard a myth-busting session on COVID-19 from a Dr. Jarvis explaining how to weed out fact from fiction and fake news from reality. Basically, she underlined the fact there is no cure for the disease, which I totally understand. But I found myself screaming at the radio, there is a prevention of future pandemics which no one seems to want to talk about. Since all coronavirus are caused by transferal from non-human to human animals, then surely now is the time to consider adopting a global vegan policy which would be the most effective way of preventing future incidences. We may develop a vaccine for this particular strain, but what if it mutates or another one comes along which, given past history, seems more than likely and, as some people speculate, it is already happening. It appears that as a global population, we are destined to spend the rest of our lives playing catch-up to these outbreaks. So when looking at the global impact of this devastation, surely veganism is the only real solution. I've been speaking on this subject for years, having been vegan almost my entire life, and that's 5 decades. So what is veganism? Well, it's not just about a diet, that's what plant-based is. It is about the ethical stance we take as individuals when making choices in our own lives. One issue it encompasses is the unfair distribution of wealth and the impact our lifestyle in the first world has on the third world. For instance, we feel angry that we've been asked or even told to stay in our homes in relative luxury and comfort during our confinement. We panic when we think we can't go out for a run, have our nails manicured or our hair cut, not that I do anyway. I do go for a run, but I don't do the latter two things. Go to restaurants or bars, see our friends and our family, and don't have food as freely and readily available as we are normally accustomed to. And all this while our government and health service fight to keep us paid and in good health. I'm asking people to consider what it will be like for those who already live in abject poverty when this virus hits their countries. That will be utter carnage beyond the imagination of us all. These people are already severely underprivileged. They're in poor health with no health service to provide for them, no government support packages, often going without food, sanitation or fresh water, just a few of the things we take for granted. We have ignored and endorsed the injustice of the appalling failings of global distribution of wealth for too long. The first world, third world gap is absolutely shameful, and it is our greed that creates their need. Perhaps this current situation gives us time to sit back and think less of our own status and more of the plight of others. So will veganism end animal agriculture and threaten business and livelihoods? The answer is yes, but that is nothing compared to what this pandemic will do to economies, and I would suggest that now is the time to embrace diversification for the good of all. I speak from first hand as I am the daughter of a miner whose industry and many thousands of people's livelihoods were totally decimated and destroyed in the 1980s with no government support. My dad went through a whole year with absolutely no salary, and our family went through extreme hardship because of it. So I do not take the issue of jobs and security lightly. Truthfully, before this pandemic, I was voicing my concerns at the misuse of the word vegan and the direction plant-based living was being taken. It was being turned into a consumer frenzy just to produce more goods with so-called vegan label on them to sell them to a general public keen to follow the next trend. Taking a consumerist and commercial model and stamping a vegan label on it when veganism is anything but these things, the actual core of its ethic being compassion and coexistence. With everything from films being produced bragging of sporting excellence and acceleration of performance due to going vegan, with opponents trying to discredit these claims at any and every given opportunity. I can't speak for individuals, and I wouldn't even try to, but surely the message should be less about the individual and more about the planet and its inhabitants as a whole, rather than the emphasis on veganism and what it brings to you, the individual, but the benefits it brings to us as a global family. Because the one thing this virus is teaching us is that we are all equal, and it makes no exceptions when it strikes. No one is immune. And for those who say that we have cleaner air and the carbon footprint is now better and animal agriculture continues so it can't be the cause, well, this seems such a stupid and naive thing to say, it hardly warrants an answer. However, since it is topical at the moment, I will share my thoughts on this. I have never said, and I have never heard anyone say, animal agriculture is the sole cause of CO2 emissions on the planet. But the eradication of it is the most easily implementable, least invasive and most effective way of radically decreasing them. So to put it into layman's terms, the world goes on lockdown, ad infinitum, or you stop eating meat and it goes back to some form of normality quite quickly. This would buy us time to find other more efficient ways to adopt other aspects of our life, such as use of fossil fuels, overpopulation and industrial practices, and reform them slowly and effectively. So who am I and why do I feel so passionate about this? Well, I'm a quadruple world record holding athlete. I've got no medical conditions. This year I had qualified to run for England in the 10 kilometres and the half marathon, as well as being tipped to do very well in the notorious ultra stage race, the Marathon des Sables. This illustrates enormous versatility and ability and is something I have sustained and maintained for many, many years. I do all this despite having an injury incurred in my teenage years, which doctors told me would prohibit me from ever walking properly again, let alone running. In fact, I only actually run to promote what I believe in a positive way, which is adopting a vegan stance. I take no medications. I've never had a running injury despite training for up to 100 miles a week. I live a very healthy and humble lifestyle and adhere to a whole food diet. I am living proof of the benefits veganism brings to personal well-being. So for anyone concerned it's just not viable or sustainable, I can assure them it very, very definitely is. Oh, and I would add that I don't even consider myself to be an athlete despite reaching elite standard, because my primary role in life is caring for over 600 rescued animals on a daily basis at the sanctuary I founded 25 years ago. And in between the running and the sanctuary, I've even found time in the past to be a retained firefighter, so you can see that I am very, very physically strong and fit. So why did I make this video? Well, it was concern for people's well-being. Obviously, people need to keep abreast of the facts and updated as to new guidelines. But I feel the message at this time should now be focused on what people can do to protect themselves in terms of their day-to-day lifestyle choices and their future. So their diet, their fitness, their immune system enhancement, and mental and physical well-being, all topics which could be talked about more. Organisations such as the BBC should be informing people not only of the negative reality, but the positive potential each individual has for change. For sure, encouraging people on ways to get through this, but inform them of choices which may prevent it happening again. It may be argued you cannot tell people what to eat, but they are now being told to stay incarcerated in their homes, isolated and feeling helpless and frightened. Shortly, being vegan and ending this type of disaster is a choice they should be made more aware of and allowed to consider as a very real and viable option to protect themselves and each other from this happening again. The reality is clear, whether it be SARS, MERS, COVID-19, Nipah, Ebola, swine fever, avian flu, they are all caused by eating animals. Whether those animals be factory farmed, it makes no difference. Some are arguing now that upgrading and changing practices in animal agriculture would prevent this happening again. But surely we cannot ask other nations to do what we are not prepared to do ourselves. Leading by example is surely the most effective and enticing way to encourage others to follow our lead. So these are just my thoughts on a topic which is so much out there at the moment, but certain aspects aren't being discussed. For me, I always understood prevention was better than any cure. So you do the maths. Take care, stay safe, look after each other, and just think about what I've said perhaps.